Before the break, we heard my exclusive interview with the boss of Saudi-funded golf tour, Greg Norman, who described the hypocrisy of his critics as deafening. Well, joining me now is Jenny Kleeman again, and legendary boxing promoter Frank Warren, who's recently been in talks with the Saudis to stage potentially Tyson Fury's next fight. Well, Frank, great to talk to you. What is your view about all this? Because the Saudis' tentacles in sport go a long way now, whether it's football clubs, whether it's golf, whether it's boxing, Formula One. And the allegation constantly put up there is that this is morally wrong. And yet I see sport doing business with all sorts of dodgy regimes all the time that aren't Saudi Arabia. What do you think?
Good evening, Piers. What do I think about it? 24th of May this year, the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson, he hosted the Emir of Qatar, and they invested 10 billion in this country, 10 billion, and the Prime Minister said it showed a vote of confidence in Britain, the trade deal, energy deal and defence deal. Boris went to Saudi when the energy crisis started and asked them to produce more oil. He went there on behalf of Britain. So the mixed messages going out I find ridiculous. You know, it's okay for the government to deal with them. It's okay for the government to sell arms to them. And yet we in sport shouldn't be doing it. So, you know, where do we go with this? Our own government are doing.
And do you think, Frank, when you listen to Greg Norman there, do you think the split in golf really is about money more than morality, that the PGA Tour, the big tour, don't want to lose their best players to the very cash-rich Live Tour? And do you think inevitably there'll be a deal and they'll have to come together?
I don't know. I mean, it is about money. You know, I'll be very honest. If, you know, most sportsmen, not so much with golf, but most sportsmen, certainly boxers, have a very short career. So using Tyson hypothetically, if he was to be offered to fight, say, 10 million in this country and he was offered 30 to fight there, I mean, who's to stop him doing that? You know, they've hosted, you've said they hosted those various events, Formula One, etc. WWE regularly run shows there. The Italian and Spanish Super Cups have been staged there on a couple of occasions. And then I think about the other investments that Saudi have made in other companies like EA, Nintendo, Walt Disney, Uber, and Facebook.
Yeah.
So I don't get any of this.
I think there's a lot of hypocrisy. Let me bring in Jenny. I mean, you're shaking your head here. I mean, I saw this week a tweet from James Cleverly thanking Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi crown prince, for his help in getting British hostages out of Russian hands in Ukraine. How is it that we can have the Foreign Secretary thanking this guy if he's such a pariah that we're not allowed to have a golf tour sponsored by him?
Because we as a country are unfortunately dependent on Saudi Arabia. They buy our arms. We depend on them financially in a way that I wish we didn't. When it comes to sports, there is a choice. We don't need this investment from Saudi Arabia. It's not like Saudi Arabia desperately cares about boxing or about golf. What they want is to co-opt some of the goodwill we feel about sport to make themselves look better. And if you look at, for example, Russia over the past 5-10 years, the Sochi Winter Olympics, Formula One, all sorts of giant sporting events that took place there, and we turned the other way because at that time we were thinking, oh, maybe Putin isn't really that bad. So is your
position that we should stop having anything to do in a sporting context with any country that has a bad human rights record?
I think a country...
Because you do realise that if that's your position, that will pretty much wipe out most major sports in the world from continuing at their same commercial levels.
I think that sport has to rise above it, and it shouldn't necessarily be about money. When you're talking about
no sport in Saudi, no sport in China?
Yes.
No World Cup in Qatar?
Yes, I would say that too.
Nothing in Russia? I mean, what you're doing, you're basically saying, right, anywhere whose regimes we don't approve of, there should be no sport. To which I would put this to you. After we illegally invaded Iraq in 2003, should people have boycotted British sport?
I'm not saying it's people whose regimes, countries whose regimes we don't agree with, but you're saying countries with an appalling human rights record where people who oppose the government are murdered, where gay people are murdered. Perhaps we should say, no, we are not going to let you burnish your image by using
Even if our governments
sports.
continue to do billions of pounds worth of business.
I think we should not vote for governments that continue to do billions of pounds worth of business.
I'd love to see the Labour Party never do any business with the Saudis, particularly on oil. Let's go back to Frank. Frank, I can't let you go without asking you, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua. There was a 5 p.m. deadline. Tyson's gone off on one, basically saying, that's it, it's off. I think there's still wriggle room. Is there still wriggle room?
Well, Tyson's adamant. He gave that deadline on Friday, and again repeated it Saturday, and I think even yesterday. And he said enough is enough. They've had the contract for over 10 days. We've had conversations today with the other side, but Tyson's had enough of it. So, you know, that's it. I mean, he's the guy. He's the champion. He's the guy that matters, and he makes the decision, and that's his decision at the moment.
Do you think it's over?
Look, personally, the only way it could happen now if they signed the contract and well, they haven't even sent back the contract with any amendments on it. So, you know, 10 days on, you thought we'd have had something back up by now. And there was positive talks today. But it's just, you know, Tyson's Tyson. You know, he feels he's giving AJ a tremendous opportunity.
I have to say,
he's
though,
coming off of 2 losses.
My money...
And paying 40%.
My bet is on this fight happening. And I've got another bet, if it does happen, with Tyson Fury, which he made on this show live, which if he does get back in the ring, I get £1 million off him. So I have a vested interest in this fight happening.
Well, it's probably your fault. It's your fault it's not going on. You know that, don't you?
He can't afford to. Frank, brilliant to have you on the show. Thank you very much, mate. Much appreciated. Jenny, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed.